The Kettle USA Daily Podcast. Today, we are welcoming Brian Curless on to the podcast. Brian is another one of our King of the Ring contestants for our King of the Ring competition in Dodge City later this July. And we are so honored to have Brian on today to share more about his story, his life and experience, and everything else. And just, he has some great advice for future auctioneers or just future cattlemen within the industry. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this episode with Brian and hear it right from him. Brian, welcome to the podcast. We are so excited to have you on with us today for you to share a little bit more about your story and all the things. I'd love it if you could just take it away and share with the audience kind of who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your story.
Well, hey, Lauren, it's just a real pleasure to be with you. You know, I'm excited about what's to come with this, with why you're having this interview. This King of the Ring is exciting for me to get to go to Dodge. So that's first and foremost, you know, but I live here in West Central Illinois. My wife and I, of 32 years now, have 3 kids here. We have a cow-calf operation, been in the auction business forever. My grandfather started in the auction business here back in the 90s now. So it was quite a story how our family got involved in the auction business, but that makes me 3rd generation. My son, who is helping me with the auction business now, is 4th generation. Father and grandfather were not auctioneers, but they were deeply involved in the auction business. So that's kind of how we got started. And we had ownership of the local livestock auction market here from that time back in the 40s up until in our town of Pittsfield, Illinois. We closed the market down, sadly, in 2002 for multiple reasons. In our environment, it just made sense. A lot of reasons led to that barn needing to close down. So in 2002, that's what happened. And so then I, from there, went to work for other livestock markets around the area, around the region. And we have continued with our local auction business, today selling farmland and machinery primarily, and continuing with local livestock auction markets, purebred sales, things like that. So that's kind of the journey up till today.
Yeah, share more about the history of your family's operation back in the 1940s. I would love to hear that story of kind of your grandparents and all that.
Yeah, so back in the 40s, when the fellows that owned the Pittsfield Community Sale in Pittsfield, Illinois, some of them had to go to war. They went to World War II. So my grandpa, who was at these auctions pretty often, they asked him one day if he wanted to kind of help them with the paperwork and clerking and so forth. And sure enough, he jumped in. So then war goes on. Those guys come back unannounced. They walk into the sale. They watch what's going on. They see how these guys are running the sale in their absence a couple of years later. And Grandpa kind of said, hey, here's the keys. Here's the thing back. Here you go. And they said, no way. You guys aren't leaving. You're staying here. You're doing too good a job. We really appreciate what you've done, what you're doing. So we want you to hang around. So that's what they did. There were a couple of those guys that just hung in there and stuck with it. And then, so there you go. 60 years later, you know, 50 years later, Grandpa was in that business for over 50 years. So that's where my dad grew up. That's where I grew up. We started in the back of the barn and, you know, kind of eventually gravitated towards the front and through ownership and so forth. So it was, and with our local auction, full service community auction service as well. So, and today, I went to auction school about the time I got married back in the early 90s and have been an auctioneer ever since, but bought that business, you know, when I was in the sale barn and doing all the odd jobs that it takes, you know, that we all learn from the very beginning. That's how we grow a passion for it, is just beginning in the back of the barn. But as I got to looking around before I went to auction school, I thought, you know, it never occurred to me to be the auctioneer. It was never something that I aspired to do. I talked to so many people and they look at the auctioneer and that's what they want to do. That's what they want to be. I was around auctions 3, 4, 5 days a week. It was just part of life. I didn't think about being the auctioneer. We were just working. So as I looked around, those other auctioneers were getting older. I thought, one of these days somebody's going to need to do this around here. So with some encouragement from my soon-to-be wife and some other friends, they shipped me off to auction school. And so the rest is kind of history. Just came back the very first day home from auctioneer school. They stuck me up in the truck and we sold pots and pans on Grandma's estate down the street in Pittsfield, so that was kind of the beginning of it. And so once we closed the market down and then just had the opportunity to go help other markets around the area and build new relationships, and really from that point found a whole new love and appreciation and passion, stepping away from the day-to-day involvement with that market. It gave me a whole new appreciation for what goes on in our local livestock markets. I will say when I didn't get involved with the LAC until 2012. So the decades just keep flying by here, But in 2012, I got with some encouragement from from Bob Fiddler at the Fairview Sale Barn in Fairview, Illinois. I got involved with the WLAC, and that ramped up a whole nother level of love and passion and understanding for local livestock auction markets and what they truly do for our communities. It's just incredible. Sometimes when we're mired in the deep, we don't see all those things, but that brought in a whole new level of appreciation.
Yeah. It takes a lot to walk away from a business and walk away from especially a family legacy and just decide that, hey, this isn't our path anymore. And there is something better out there for us, even if we don't necessarily in this moment know what that is. I am trusting God and trusting the situation that, hey, it's time. It's time to close this down. It's time to move forward. And I'm sure you now look at your life and you wouldn't trade it for the world. You look at it now and you're like, yeah, there was a lot of hidden blessings in that decision and in the life that you are probably walking right now. Is that correct?
I can't tell you how blessed I've been. In every walk, every way, with everything, I wouldn't trade my life for anybody. I'd love to go see other places, to go visit other people. That's something that I've been fortunate to be able to travel around some. And that's what brought me back home. I actually, after college, I was gone for a year or so, and it was strictly a travel thing. I was working, but was able to travel all across the country. Saw some of the most beautiful places in the country. But when I came back here for a Christmas visit, I saw that it's just as beautiful and fantastic, and the people are just as wonderful here as they are any place in the world. So I was happy to come back here and to get involved. And from that point, just with my wife and 3 great kids and, being able to be involved in our cow-calf business and being out on the land and to be involved as a producer that way. But also with our local auction business, with selling farmland and machinery, our purebred sales, just the different contacts that we have with this just amazing maze of people, blessed in every way, Lauren. It's just, I can't tell you.
I would love to hear some of your favorite memories that you have of your time as an auctioneer or just growing up in the industry. Just kind of whatever you think there. What are some of your favorite memories that come to mind with that life?
Yeah, you know what? It starts when I was a kid in our local market and just being involved with all those great producers, with the ornery old cattle buyers that gave me so much grief. But before I became an auctioneer, I had a relationship with those guys. And just remembering the dealings with those fellows. And that's something that I learned after being involved with the WLAC and visiting a lot more markets. Everywhere you go, the markets, as different as they are, they're all the same. No matter where you go, as different as the people are for all their intricacies, they're all exactly the same. You can walk into a sale barn anywhere in the land and you're going to see the same guys, the same people, the same producers, the same buyers. Truly, it's fantastic because everywhere you go, you can feel like you're at home.
Yeah, I think that's such an amazing part about agriculture, right? We always joke that we're such a small, tight, close-knit family industry, but we really are. Like if you go and experience a ranching operation in northern Montana or whether you're experiencing one in southern Florida, you're still going to feel the same vibe because we have a certain standard of life that we live as agriculturalists. And it's crazy to see how I'm very well traveled too. I've traveled all across the country, all the different operations, and we may do things differently in certain aspects, just the way that we run our operations. But in our heart and in our soul, the passion is still the same. The drive is still the same. The reason that we are showing up is still the same at the end of the day.
It's just the love of the land, the love of the livestock, the love of people, and no matter what you're doing, you're involved with people, and it's a matter of having and building, growing, fostering those relationships with those people. And sometimes it takes a while to do that, right? Sometimes, and I'm probably guilty of that myself, of just maybe having a little bit of a shell that I got to break out of every once in a while,
Yeah, absolutely. Can you share a little bit more about your journey as an auctioneer? You said that you got started a little bit later in life, when it was in the 90s when you first got started, and then life just kind of looked a little different for you. You weren't necessarily on an auction block at a sale barn every single week. You were doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of everything. And then as you got involved in competitive auctioneering and all of those things too, I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah. So, at our local market, indeed, once I went to auction school, and that's something that's just fortunate to be in the right place at the right time, like a lot of guys are. But I was at that market a couple of days a week. So I had an opportunity to be behind the mic quite a bit. The other thing that helped me, and I think it helps a lot of guys also, I was kind of in those early, late high school, college, coming out of college, and hauling a lot of cattle in and out for producers, cattle in our country, hauling a lot of feeder pigs. So spent a lot of time in a truck, spent a lot of time on a tractor, wearing out the tapes from the Missouri Auction School. Absolutely wore them out, just listening to them and working on them and listening to the champions. Nothing different than a lot of people do. And these guys today obviously have a great advantage. They didn't have to, they didn't wear out a tape and then have to wait for the next one to come. They just listen over and over and over. Being able to be in that market and on the weekends, be in the auction truck selling farm equipment and that kind of thing, So I was very fortunate to get to have a lot of practice. So, just kind of slugged it out, as long as, so for, give or take 10 years when we had the market open here, was able to just work on it and try to get better, but was not really watching, that's not true. I will tell you so I go to auction school in 1992. By 1997, I was kind of getting interested, and I obviously had paid a lot of attention to the champions, to WLAC, but I went to my first World Livestock Auctioneer contest that was in Fort Pierce, South Dakota. In 97, watched Joe Frazier win the contest. You're right, I wasn't really a kid anymore, but I will tell you, I sat on the front row of that auction that day, did not get up, did not leave, sat and watched the whole thing. What an incredible experience. Was blessed to be able to go there and see how that all works. So that, obviously, I come back with a whole new focus. But even then in 1997, it just made me kind of work a little harder, pay a little closer attention, but still didn't probably have the maybe the nerve, maybe the confidence at that time to jump into the WLAC myself. So as that went on, I moved on selling for other markets. Then with some encouragement, I remember the first time selling at the Fairview Sale Barn. Bob Fiddler had been to South Carolina in 2011. Charlie Cummings wins the contest out there. Charlie comes to the market, sits down, and Charlie was very encouraging to me as well. He said, "Dude, what are you doing? You need to get to work on this," So that was a little bit of shove in that direction. Bob Fiddler was a shove in that direction. So with those guys' encouragement, that helped me kind of boot me into competitive auctioneering. I had been in a couple of smaller contests previous to that, but you know what? I was just also content with being here on the farm, doing what we did in our local community. That's just fine too. But like I say, when you get involved, and that's the great thing about competitive auctioneering, is it forces you to be better. It forces you to pay attention to the details. And that's what when I get to talk to someone who's young and they're asking for advice about, what can I do? What do you think about my chant? What can I do to improve? And I say, well, the best thing I can tell you is record yourself and listen to it, and listen to these tapes of champions and pay attention to the difference between what you hear in yourself, video yourself. What do you see in yourself? What do I hear? What do I see? What am I doing any different? If I want to be a champion, then what do I do any different? Not to fit the mold necessarily, but just to eliminate the mistakes. So in anybody's chant, I feel like don't compare it to somebody else's chant necessarily. Do the best that you can with what you have. Eliminate mistakes. Pay attention to the details. And after that, it's up to you. Then you have to have the passion, the drive to work on it and just keep going. But so that's what I tell young guys now.
I love that. That's such a great way to continue to grow and develop yourself and continue to challenge yourself. So that's great advice. To anyone else kind of growing up and looking at the auction business or growing up in this industry, what other advice do you have for them, for young individuals coming up?
I think there's a ton of potential. I think we are at a turning point here where I think that this industry has got so much potential and in different directions. Our livestock marketing industry, there's so many opportunities. I know it's a different landscape. We're all well aware that we're in a different time. We're in a different world, and we can all look at the negatives and talk about how it's changing. But, if we have a passion for it and we continue to look for ways to fill a need within our community, wherever that community might be, if it's across the street or if it's across the world, obviously we can touch people across the world in an instant now. So whatever need you find within that community to fill, find it. Have a passion for it and do the best you can and make all the relationships you can, but focus and pay attention to the details and be the best you can be. And as you said, that's a great point. Don't measure yourself against everybody else, but measure yourself against yourself. Make yourself sharper. Make yourself better than you were yesterday, as they say.
Yeah, I always like to say the 1%. You just got to be 1% better today than you were the day before. And all of a sudden, you're not going to see it yesterday. You're not going to see it tomorrow. You're not even going to see it in a couple weeks. You're not going to see the difference. But hey, in 6 months, you're going to look back and you're going to see one hell of a difference if you just try to be 1% better or even 0.5% better. Like some days I get out of bed and I'm like, we're going for 0.5% better today.
For sure. No, what a great outlook. And obviously, if we continue to do that, and if we continue to do that to improve the industry, I feel like is the same thing. We can only do our own little part, right? So whatever that is, make those small improvements. What are the gifts that God has given you, and capitalize on those? We can't, each one of us, do everything, but find the gift that you've been given and make a difference in your community.
That's wonderful. So well said. Brian, as you look towards the future, what kind of does the future have in store for you? What's on the horizon? I know you said that you have the blessing to work with your son. What's in the future for you guys?
Yeah. So we have a strong intention to grow this local business, our local land auction business. He is also a land broker, so that brings another aspect into that. Love selling at the local livestock markets that I am fortunate to be able to serve. Love these purebred cattle sales. So, if I can work on that 1%, as you suggested, every day, and maybe we'll try to average it at 2 or 3 if we work a little harder, So between that and love having a cow herd on our farm here, so want to continue that and see what opportunities come.
Yes, that's wonderful. I always love asking that question to people and just seeing what's on the horizon, because I'm a very futuristic person. So I love hearing what people have in store for their futures in their lives as well. Do you have any other final comments or things that you would like to say as we round out the podcast?
Well, I think the future is very bright, and I can't wait to see what happens tomorrow. I'm excited for our industry, all aspects of it, just like a lot of industries that have had struggles as they come and some of them go. The good Lord put green grass and sunshine on this planet, and the best thing we can do with that is to put a mama cow on it. So far, nobody's been able to put them in a building and confine them. If we can keep that shut off and we can still keep a mama cow running on an acre of grass, 40 acres of grass, then I think the world will be a very happy, successful place. We'll all be just fine. long as that can happen.
Amen. I could not agree more. Brian, seriously, thank you so much for your time today. Today was a blessing and a pleasure having you on, and just hearing more about your life and your story and your passion for the industry is amazing. And it is something that I have been able to absorb just through the other end of the screen. And I know all of our listeners had the blessing of being able to do that too. So thank you for your time. And to all of you listeners out there, we will see you all tomorrow on another episode of the Cattle USA Daily Podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, rate, review, share this podcast with a friend. If you loved Brian's story and you think it would resonate with someone, please make sure you share that with them as well. So as always, have a great day, and we'll see y'all tomorrow. Have a good one, y'all.